Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for showing up for today's training. We're going to go over a lot of the basics of raw land and the insights as an investor and developer and what you're looking for investing into raw land. Raw land or the development process is often viewed as a complex investing strategy, but it can and doesn't have to be. Raw land you can actually just pick up and hope for appreciation over time. It's a good place to park money over time. You have lower taxes, and there's some other benefits as well, especially if you purchase land in a trending area. So raw land development is the process of purchasing a parcel of land with the intent of either developing the building on it or holding on to it for a long-term appreciation. There's an array of configurations, but essentially provides a multitude of advantages for all types of investors, whether it's from selling the property, renting it out for passive income, or simply earning appreciation over time. Fortunately for investors, raw land is a limited resource, making it extremely valuable. If you purchase raw land in an area that is head towards development and growth, there's a chance your land can become even more valuable than the day you purchased it, either in a short period of time or a longer period of time, depending on the trend and the development growth of the market. Investors look to develop raw land should mind their due diligence and thoroughly educate themselves on the market where they plan to invest. The best way to pay attention to the market trends is really just tracking the market movements, where you're seeing a lot of other development happen. You should examine recent developments in your selected market area. There's been recent surge in development projects in the area. It's likely that buyers are looking for land still in that area and also a smart growth opportunity for your developers. So, any questions on raw land so far? You good, Diane?
Is this gonna be on,
Yes.
Quiz?
Yeah. No quizzes.
No quizzes
today. No quizzes today.
Okay.
The attraction to raw land or the development process of it is easy to see as you go through the costs. Now, as you develop, you're going to want to weigh out your options. Sometimes you might be able to find a home that is falling apart or distressed. You might be able to pick up that parcel of land for even cheaper than actual vacant land in the same area. Sometimes because you're going to have demolition costs and things like that, it might weigh out, but that's your research, your developer's research, and what the land's potential is for. So some of the main reasons: it's less competitive, unlike regular real estate, where there's currently experiencing higher than normal competition. There's virtually no competition with the raw land situation unless it's in highly developed areas. Over the last few years, you might see K-Town or downtown or North Hollywood being a huge area of development. So when you go to the immediate, it could become an immediate source of income or a longer term hold, unless you want to. The undeveloped land will generally not earn income on a regular basis, such as your investment opportunities, buying apartment buildings and things. One of the benefits for selling land or buying land is you might be able to take advantage of seller financing. A lot of banks on vacant raw land might not help support the financing of it. A lot of times you're gonna have to put down 30+%. Because it's a non-income producing, the banks are gonna look at it as something more of a risk because they might not get paid back. So with this, the sellers might ask for more, might be willing to finance the property for you. It's going to come at a higher interest rate, but maybe a lower down payment as well. So those are options with land. And it's inexpensive compared to most plots with buildings or income producing properties on them as well. Really what you're going to do is you, the developers, the buyers or sellers in this, everyone's going to have to do their due diligence and really look at what the cost is for that zoned lot. The appreciation, arguably the biggest benefit of investing in raw land is the appreciation potential. Even in times of economic uncertainty, land will generally always appreciate over a period of time. If the economy is thriving, there's a higher probability that your land value will appreciate as well because the property is around it, meaning you can sell it for a higher potential for development. Anything to add about land?
No, interesting, yeah, I like that, ground leases possibly with lease option to buy, maybe?
Exactly. So you can actually sell or lease off the land that you purchased to somebody else and have a passive income on it.
Yeah, I like that, and thinking of their best interest too, and possibly also with ground leases, maybe set it up with developers where they don't actually have to sell their land, but like you say, a ground
Lease it
lease, and
back.
they get a portion of profit if you're gonna build
They're making money.
a restaurant or whatever.
That's
on
right.
the
Joint
property.
venture.
A joint venture is always a good possibility as well.
Joint venture, okay.
interesting.
And we also do a lot of joint ventures here. Actually, one of the exchange clients is gonna dump some of his exchange funds into a purchase that the company had made, and they're gonna sell back some interest on it. So they're gonna use some of his money to, finance this situation.
Nice.
So those are always possibilities that we have here at Peak.
This
So
is good information.
always think about that. If someone has a small purchase price, is looking for a moderate return, and you can't find a property, we have those options in-house. So some of the tips and things you need to think about when you're looking at land for your potential buyers or clients, or even for yourself. Ensure the property doesn't have any liens on it or anything withholding. When planning to buy land, it's important that you do your due diligence. Ensure the property you're purchasing is free from any liens. So, you might even want to hire an attorney. Hopefully your investors already have such to look into this for you, or for themselves actually. Buy before the potential trends already happen. If you can get ahead of the movement of development, if you can start seeing where places are starting to grow, you can actually get ahead of it and potentially buy. Jordan has a client who he just listed 40 acres with us. He had purchased it out near California City, where at the time when he bought it 40 years ago, they thought that California City was gonna grow into a decent metro area, and that did not happen. California City is pretty desolate. So now he's left with land that's appreciated over time. There's water and power out there, so he's in a good position to sell for someone who's looking to develop a big project. But when you're looking at parcels, you wanna know the zoning. The zoning is a huge part into what you're allowed to put on it. If it's gonna be for residential, commercial, industrial, or even agriculture. Your investors, with that in mind, you wanna make sure that you're showing them properties that's zoned for the right development that they're looking to produce. Hire your own surveyors. Every time you go into a purchase, regardless if the seller already has a survey on file, if it's within 6 months, you could probably go with that, even within a year maybe, but you should definitely elect to get your own survey done by your own surveying team as well. You wanna make sure that there's everything on the property is what it needs to be. This is gonna happen with the erosion of the ground and the topography of if you can build a certain height or what kind of restrictions are gonna be involved. And like I mentioned earlier, consider checking for tear down properties over the vacant land. Sometimes in some areas, the tear down option is almost the same price, or a little bit less than a completely vacant lot. And it's probably already in a desired area since there was a building there to begin with. Anticipate land taking several years to sell for profit. If you have a client who's only looking to hold and sell for 2 or 3 years, land's probably not the best option for them. Most of the time, you're gonna probably wanna hold onto that land for 5 to 10 years, if not longer sometimes, depending on the trends and the development opportunities in the area. But most times, most of our listings for land are about a year long. We don't get the most action on them because it is a smaller niche of buyers that are looking for that raw vacant land. Consult a builder before you actually go through the purchase. Have an architect or a builder, a developer assist you with purchasing this. We might want to help our clients out by introducing them to other people in our industry who do this on a daily professional level. That way we are clear and certain of the potential that can be put on the land that we purchase. Even after the purchase of land, regardless of having anything on it, you're still gonna wanna have insurance. You can just get the comprehensive title insurance, coverage should be pretty good. You might wanna elect to get extra general liability, because it is your land. If it's in a somewhat residential area or around people, there's potential that someone's on your property and could get hurt and you don't wanna be liable. The other reason for that is because most raw landowners, they're not present, they're not around the area, so most of the time that raw land is has no surveillance or security around it.
That's probably why I always see fences around vacant land all the time.
Correct.
Where there's
Yeah.
no negligence, somebody can get hurt.
Exactly, and as an owner, you probably are very passive with that plot of land, and you're not checking out the dangers around it. So by fencing it up, definitely helps your situation out. Something to reiterate to your buyers is to be patient. Looking for the right piece of land is gonna take some time, and selling land also takes time because of the right buyers. If you don't have a water source or electricity, if there are non-developed roads, things like that, that's gonna hinder the time in producing a transaction on there. As soon as you have land, when you're working with the seller, all sellers, even if you own land, you should really work with a commercial real estate agent to help market your property accordingly. Get it out to the people that it needs to be seen by. There are some specific sites online that are just for land, and you can check those out. I'll give you some links later on today. Some other things to think about: beware of the flood areas, mudslides, and land erosions. So this again is going to go into the area that you're purchasing. If you know that they collect a lot of water, it's heavy rains, or it's on a heavy slope, those are less desired areas that are going to be purchased and developed in. Most people aren't going to build apartment complexes or shopping areas in a flood zone. Research the neighbors. In that area, in the vacant land, see what's in the area. That's also going to depict on what's probably the healthiest property for you to put in that location. If it's potentially a single family or multifamily or even commercial, you're going to want to look at the demographics with you, your buyers, and the developers. When you're purchasing raw land, there's quite a few people involved because generally not one person handles all of the development aspects. So you have to make sure you're working everybody as a team together, and make sure that the value of the land that you're purchasing is going to appreciate enough with a property on it for a resale. A lot of times you might be able to buy land, but it's too expensive that where after you develop, you're either selling for a loss or no profit at all. Now as a developer or a builder, set a budget, stick to it. And as soon as you start going outside of your budget, that's when you start to incur other costs that takes away from your cash flow at the end of the day. LA County right now, from the beginning of the year to today, it's sold $3 billion in land transactions. Most of them are very large acquisitions. There was one transaction for 190 million at one point, and there's the lowest transaction at 166,000. But all of that's within LA County, most in the outlying areas where you're seeing a lot of industrial parks being put up, warehouses. But there's quite a bit of transactions. There's about 650 transactions so far this year on vacant land. So that gives you an idea of how much is being, the velocity of land right now. Any other questions?
Sounds like you covered pretty much everything, but like you said, I've been working with land for sale, and exactly what you say. By the time we work up the cost of construction, we're usually under. It becomes a liability. So we just have to wait until property gets developed above that land and then sold, and that's our new comp.
Correct, so sometimes it
It's like
sounds
a-
like the land needs to hold on to it a little bit more
Yeah.
appreciation, or the area needs to come up in value.
Yeah, it's that little waiting game. We've got a couple properties waiting for that, for properties to be built on just above us, then we can renegotiate again.
And that's gonna happen a lot, especially in developed areas already.
That's what I'm finding out.
Yeah, it's like I said, be patient, it's a long
Okay.
game.
Yeah.
Fewer and far between, perfect lots, so.
Those are beautiful lots south of the boulevard, a view, everything. You
So
know,
sometimes
but
we
cost
just
of
be patient.
construction just gets us about every time.
Yeah, and construction costs are going up quite a bit.
Yeah.
If you have any questions about construction loans, Michael Katz does, construction loans, all the time. He just closed one in West Hollywood for about $3.5 million.
Is he in this building?
Correct.
Right
Yep.
here.
Upstairs?
No, he's in our department.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so. All right, I think that's gonna do it for today. Thank you for coming.
Good information.